So we were discussing about flow control statements in Python. So in the last video, I have discussed about conditional statements. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to use iterative statements or looping statements in Python. Okay. So in Python, we have two types of loop statements or iterative statements. One is for loop and the other one is while loop. So before discussing this for loop, let's start with discussing the for loop. So before discussing this for loop, we need to understand one function called as a range function in Python. So for loop is always used with the range function. So what is this range function? Let us see. So range is a function in Python which will give you some output based upon the input you are provided here. Now let us just focus on this. So when I say range of 10, okay, so if you want to get this, it will print 0 to 9. So it will start from the 0 and the 9 will be avoided. So till 9 it is printed. So range of 10 means it will start from 0, iterating, start from 0, the maximum value will be 9. Similarly, if I pass 5, 10 to the range method, it will start from the 5 and it will print till 9. And how many values it will print? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the range of values will be printed as an output. That's about the range method. So for example, if I want to print only odd numbers between 1 to 10, so I can just say 1, 10, 2. So what it is representing is 1 is a starting value, 10 is the ending value. So means it will take till 9, and here 2 is an incremented value. So every time how much we need to increment, that we can say is the third parameter. So first time it will print 1, perfect. And now again it will increment by 2, now it will become 3. Again it will increment by 2, again it becomes 5. Again it will increment by 2, again it becomes 7. Again it will increment by 2, now it becomes 9. So 10 is the last, so 9 is the last number. Okay, so similarly if you want to print only even numbers, I can just start from the 0, the maximum is 10. So every time again I will increment by 2. So 0 if I increment by 2, it will become 2. Again if I increment 2, again it will become 4, 6 and 8 is the last even number. So like this we can just use range function to print the range of values. And here we can also pass negative numbers. Let's see here in this example. I want to print 10 to 1, so in descending order. So I can just say starting value is 10 and till I have to print till 1, so I just say 1 here. Okay, and how much I need to decrement every time? 1. So instead of positive number, we have to specify the negative number here. When I say minus 1, every time first it will print 10 and it will print minus 1 9, minus 1 8, minus 1 7, again so on it will come to the 2. So 2 is the last number. So 1 it will not be considered. Okay. So similarly we can also pass negative numbers in the range function. So if I see here example minus 10 minus 5. So what does it mean is starting is minus 10 is a lower number. Minus 10 is a lower, right? So minus 5 is a greater. So how many values it will print? Minus 10, then minus 9, minus 8, minus 7 and minus 6. So minus 5 is the maximum number that will be avoided, and before that whichever number is there till that it will print. So we can also print the negatives. So in the negatives, minus 1, minus 9 is greater than minus 10, minus 8 is greater than minus 9, minus 7 is greater than minus 8, minus 6 is greater than minus 7. And similarly, suppose if you want to increment the negatives. So for example, minus 10 to minus I have printed here. So I want to increment by 2 now, right? So how we can do that? Just give the positive number here, 2. So minus 10 it will print first. If I add plus 2, it will become minus 8. If I add one more 2, it will become minus 6. Okay. So the range function we can just use to print a set of numbers in sequence manner. So we have to use this function with the for loop now. So let me just show you a few examples how we can use this range function with the for loop in Python. So let me open PyCharm. So in the PyCharm, I'm going to create a few examples to demonstrate for loop. Okay. So let me just create a new Python file. So I will name it as loops. Now, okay. Now here, in example 1, what I want to do is I want to print 1 to 10 numbers. So 10 numbers means in the range, the last value will not be considered. So it will print only just 9. So if we want to exactly print 1 to 10 numbers, we have to give maximum number is 11. Okay. So let's print 1 to 10 numbers by using for loop. So how we can write a for loop? So the syntax of the for loop will be like this. Let's say for, right? For, I'll take an initial variable. So I is an incremented variable. I in. So here range. So here we need to specify the number. So when I say only 10 here, only single parameter if I say, so starting value it will be considered by default is 0. So by default starting value is 0 here. So by default starting value is 0. So that's the reason it will print from 0 to 10. So last number it will avoid. So 0 to 9 it will print. 0 to 9 it will print. So for I in range 10, right? So I need to write something like this. So here I need to write a print command. Print. What I should print? I should print. Okay. So for I in range 10. Okay. First the initial value will be assigned to the I. Now I value will print here. So what is the initial value? 0 is the initial value. And then again it will go up and again the next value 1 will be assigned to the I. Now we will print I value here. Now 1. And next it will go and 2 will be assigned to the I. Now again we'll print I value here 2. So it will go on like this till 9. Now let's see how we can run this. Let's run this. Just a moment. 1 second. So run as run loops. Now we will get some error here. What is an error we are getting? By default starting value 0. So here I put the comment, right? Just remove from here and put here. So for I in range of 10. So here, sorry, I miss the colon here. So colon is mandatory. So comment you can put anywhere, no issues. But colon I have missed here. Okay. So now run this loops and then you will get a output called 0 starting and ending is 9. So 0 to 9 numbers we have printed successfully. So now I want to print only even numbers, right? So 1 to 10, what are the even numbers? Start from 2, right? So the last even number will be 8, right? So let's see how we can print only even numbers. So here I will print even numbers and between 1 to 10. So how we can write now I in range. So where you need to start now, even number, starting even number is 2. So 2, 2. From 2 I need to specify the maximum range. So up to 10 numbers I want to print. And every time how much I need to increment? 2 I should increment. Okay. So the starting value is 2. So the maximum range is 10. And every time 2 should be incremented by 2. And then we will get the even numbers. Now we'll see first. So here the default starting value is 2 here because we specified 2 here. And every time it will increment 2. So the last parameter is representing the incrementation part. Okay. So if we have 3 parameters in method, the first parameter representing the initial value and the second parameter is representing the maximum value and the third parameter is representing the increment or decrement value. Okay. So here the first initiate with 2, so starting value is 2. So instead of initial value I can just say starting value. And maximum value, how many times it will repeat, decided based on the maximum value. And then third part is the increment or decrement value. Now first I2 will be assigned to the I. Now here 2 will print. Then it will increment by 2. Again now it becomes 4. Now 4 will assign to the I. Now 4 will be printed. Next it is incremented by 2. So now it becomes 6. 6 will be printed. And then again incremented by 2 it becomes 8. So I value becomes 8. 8 will be printed. Now again it is incremented by 2. Now it becomes 10. So the maximum range is only 10. But the last value will be ignored. So it will stop 8. Now when I run this code it will give you only 2468. 2468. Suppose if you want to print 10 also, we can just make this range as 11 and then it will give you perfectly 2 to 10. Okay, so this is how we need to print even numbers between 1 to 10. And similarly, if you want to print odd numbers, just start instead of 2, just start from 1 because the first one is a starting odd number, right? So when I give this, it will print all odd numbers between 1 to 10. Okay, so this is how we need to use range function with for loop. Suppose I want to print numbers in descending order. Okay, so I want to print numbers in descending order. let's say 10, 9, 8 till 1. So how we can do that? So I can just change this logic simply like this. For I in, so starting value is 10, right? How many numbers I need to, the maximum value is 1. And how many numbers I need to decrement every time? So 1 I need to decrement. Let's say minus 1. So every time you start from 10 only, and here the column, and then I print those values, print I, right? So now what happens is, first value is 10, right? It will be assigned to the I. Now here it will print I value is 10 first, and then minus 1 means it becomes 9 now. So 9 will be assigned to the I, 9 will print. Then 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and again 2 minus 1, 1. So 1 is the last maximum value, so it will just avoid the last number, right? So it will stop into itself. So when I run this code, this will give you exactly what it is printed. So something wrong in the logic. What went wrong here? We are given starting value is 10, right? So for I in range function we missed here, right? We need to print the range here. So now run this. Right now you can see 10, 9, 8, 7 till 2 it is printed. Okay, so this is how we can just increment those values and decrement those values. So range function always we need to use with the for loop. Okay, so that is all about for loop. So now here I have given these examples. So 1 to 9 numbers, if you want to print, just range is 10, so initial value will be 0. So 0 to 10 it will print all the numbers, and this is for even numbers between 2 to 9. So starting value is 2 and the last value is 10, and every time we'll increment 2, so it will give you only even numbers. And if you want to print only odd numbers, we can just say starting value is 1, the maximum value is 10, and incremented every time by 2. So this will print only 1 to 9 odd numbers. Then if you want to print 10 to 1 in descending order, I'll start from 10, and the maximum range is 1. So 10, 9, 2, 9, 8, 7, it should decrease till 1. And here it will stop. So every time I need to decrease by 1, minus 1. Okay, so this is how we need to use for loop with range function. Okay, now we have one more loop called as a while loop. Now let's see how to use a while loop. So while loop is required a variable with a starting value. We have to define a variable with a starting value. Now let's see how we can use this while loop programmatically. Now here I will just remove this stuff. Now I'm demonstrating while loop. So here we don't need to use a range function. We cannot use range function with while loop, because when we need to go for loop, if you know the starting value and the ending value, if you have a condition, and then we can go for the for loop. But when we need to go for the while loop, in the while loop we'll go for whenever you know the starting value. And suppose if you don't know the ending value, so we don't need to go for while loop. So here the main important thing is initialization is required and the condition is required. But in the for loop, what we have done, we have used range function. So we have clearly defined the range from where to where the loop, the where to where we have to print those values. That defines how many times the loop should repeat. But in case of while, we don't specify any range. So we will specify the condition. Instead of range, we will specify the condition. So the while loop will repeat till that condition become false. Now let me just write a small while loop and show you how it will work. So I want to print 1 to 10 numbers, means 1 to 10 numbers. Now we can see I'll define a variable called as I is equal to 1. So this is a starting value. Now I'll write a while loop statement. So the syntax of while will be like this: while the condition. So I is a condition less than or is equal to 10. This is a condition. So initial value of I is 1 and 1 less than or is equal to 10, and put the colon, right? So here I will just print of I. So now this will print I value. So initial value of I is 1, 1 less than or is equal to 10 is true. Now it will print. So immediately we need to also do incrementation part. I is equal to I plus 1. If I don't increment this, it will go to infinite loop. Okay, this loop will never exit, because every time I value 1, 1 less than or is equal to 10, every time will be true. So whenever the condition is true, this statement will execute. So if you don't specify this incrementation, this loop will go to infinitely. So in the while loop, we must specify the initial value, condition, and incrementation. But when you come to the for loop, we don't need to specify this initial value separately. That will be part of for loop. And even we don't need to specify the condition. That will be taken care by the range function. And the only thing is we have to write a print command. That's the major difference between for loop and while loop. But in the while loop, we need three statements separately: initialization, condition, and incrementation. Okay. Now let's run this program. Now we can see starting from 1 and it is print till 10. And similarly, you can also print in descending order. Suppose if I change this logic little bit. So let me just write this logic again. So I will redefine the variable I is equal to 1. So I is equal to, I make it as a 10 now. Redefine the value. And read declaration is possible in Python, right? So we can define the same variable any number of times. But in Java and other languages, we cannot redefine the variable, but we can change the value of the variable multiple times. So here I have declared this I variable once again, but this time I have initialized a 10 as a value. Now in the while condition, I'll just say I greater than 1, greater than or is equal to 1. This is my condition. Instead of incrementing every time, I'll just decrement this value. Now we can see 10 is greater than or equal to 1 is true. Now it will print 10 as an output. Now minus minus, I becomes 9 now. So 9 greater than or equal to 1, condition is true. Now this time 9 will print it. Next time 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. 1 is also true. So whenever I value becomes 1, 1 greater than or is equal to 1. So equal to is there, right? So the condition will match. So 1 is also print. Again, if I minus again, it will become 0 now. So 0 greater than or equal to 1 is false. Then this loop will exit. Okay. Now let me just comment the first one. Now let's run this code. Run as loops. Now we can see here 10 to 1 is printed in descending order. Okay. So this is a few examples of while loop. So we have two looping statements in Python. One is a for loop with range command, a range function, and the other one is a while loop. Okay. So the same example I have explained here. So in the while loop, we have printed 1 to 9 numbers, and here initialization. This is a condition. This is the incrementation. So we have to write three statements. But in case of while loop, we have just initialized the value here itself. We don't need condition. We have specified the range, and only the statement will be part of the for loop. Okay. So that's all for this video. So thank you all. Please subscribe my channel to get more updates on this. So thank you all.